Welcome, dear listener. Take a moment to let your body soften into stillness. Allow your breath to flow in and out like the slow rhythm of the tide. Tonight, you will be guided into a gentle story, a quiet tale of longing, of soft wonder, and of love that drifts like starlight across the sky. This is not a story of hurry nor of noise. It is a story meant to calm your heart, to ease your mind, and to cradle you gently towards sleep. As you listen, feel free to let your eyelids grow heavy, your thoughts loosen, and your spirit rest. Now, let us begin. Ezra lived quietly in a home that sat at the edge of a small town. His roof was flat and wide, and every evening, after the world below softened into stillness, he would climb a narrow ladder to rest upon it. There, with a thin blanket spread beneath him, he would gaze at the open sky. The stars had been his companions for as long as he could remember. They shimmered like lanterns suspended in endless dark, always familiar, always present. And yet, among them all, one night had been different. It was the night a single star had fallen, not like the quick streaks of light that sometimes darted and vanished. This one had lingered, almost hesitant. It had glowed brighter than the others, pulsing faintly, almost like a heartbeat. Ezra had whispered a wish without meaning to, the words slipping out like a secret. And when he finally drifted to sleep, he dreamed of a name. He could not remember the name in full upon waking, only the softness of its sound, the way it brushed against him like a feather. Since then, every evening, Ezra returned to the roof. He would lie on his back, hands folded across his chest, and search for the blinking star. Sometimes it appeared faint, almost shy, hidden among constellations. Other times it would shine clearly, steady, as though watching him in return. He began to feel it was not only he who was looking. The townspeople who knew him saw only a quiet man who loved the night sky. They would pass by his home and catch sight of him in the dark, his figure stretched out upon the rooftop, eyes lifted, lips curved in the smallest of smiles. But they did not know about the name that lingered inside him. They did not know of the way he sometimes closed his eyes, as though listening for a whisper carried not by the wind, but by the heavens themselves. Ezra's days were simple. He rose with the light, tended to small tasks, and spoke kindly when spoken to, yet his heart remained tethered to the evenings, to the hush of twilight, to the slow arrival of the stars. Each night as he climbed the ladder, there was always a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, he would see it fall again, the star. That seemed to know him, and so he waited, patient, gentle, steady as the night itself. The blanket beneath him gathered the warmth of his body. The air carried the faint scent of pine drifting from the forest nearby, and the world hushed around him. In that hush, Ezra whispered once more into the night. "I'll be here," he said softly, to no one in particular, though he wondered if the star could hear, and above him the sky seemed to shimmer a little brighter as though it had answered. The nights passed softly, one after another, until the air grew warmer and the grass taller. Summer was settling gently upon the town, and with it came evenings filled with cicadas humming low and breezes that carried the scent of wildflowers. Ezra, as always, climbed his familiar ladder. He spread his blanket across the roof and lay back, eyes drawn to the velvet sky. At first, everything seemed ordinary. Stars blinked in steady constellations. The moon leaned like a silver smile over the horizon. The air hushed itself into calm. But then, something shifted among the countless lights above. One star began to glow more brightly, slowly, patiently, as though it had been waiting for this very night. Ezra's breath caught. He knew this glow, the same star that had lingered before. The one that had whispered a name into his sleep now pulsed again, like a lantern being lifted in the dark. It did not streak swiftly across the sky as falling stars often do. Instead, it drifted downward, glowing in gentle descent as if it wanted to be seen. Ezra rose to his feet, his heart steady yet full. His eyes followed the star's quiet path. As it moved not toward the horizon, but closer, lower, nearer to the earth, he watched as it crossed the line of trees beyond the town, its glow softening but not fading. It came to rest in the distance, in a meadow he knew well, one that lay between two hills, carpeted with tall grasses that bent like waves in the night breeze. Ezra's steps were unhurried as he climbed down from his roof. He folded his blanket neatly, tucked it under his arm, and moved through the quiet streets. The town was fast asleep, windows shuttered, lanterns dim. His sandals brushed the earth softly, each step slow, measured, almost reverent. The path out of town was lined with stone walls, worn smooth with age. Fireflies hovered above the hedges, their tiny lights flickering in gentle rhythm as though guiding him onward. Ezra did not hurry. He did not feel the need to. The star had fallen slowly, as if waiting. And so he walked slowly too, letting the night wrap around him, letting the cool breeze press against his skin, letting the silence carry him forward. At last, the fields opened before him. The meadow stretched wide, glistening with dew, its grasses swaying like the sea, and there at its center, a soft glow lingered. It was not harsh or blinding. It was tender, gentle, like the glow of a lantern beneath a veil. Ezra stopped at the meadow's edge, simply breathing. The world seemed hushed, as though it too was listening. He stepped onto the grass, its cool blades brushing against his ankles. Each stride brought him closer to the quiet light, and each stride seemed to soften the earth beneath his feet. The glow flickered once, as if acknowledging him. Ezra's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. He whispered, just as he had on his, "Rooftop, I'm here." And the star, resting now in the meadow's heart, seemed to brighten. The meadow stretched wide and quiet, the air hushed as though it held its breath. Ezra stepped closer, his sandals brushing softly through the tall grass. The glow in the center of the field was steady now, no longer drifting, but resting gently upon the earth. It shimmered like starlight caught in mist, delicate and dreamlike. Ezra slowed his steps, not out of fear, but out of reverence, as if approaching a moment he had already dreamed, yet could scarcely believe awake. And then the lights oftened. It began to take form, shaping itself not into a burning flame, nor into a stone or a fallen ember, but into something tender, graceful, human. A figure sat quietly among the grasses, surrounded by a faint shimmer of stardust that glowed and dimmed like breathing. Her hair fell in soft waves, scattered with flecks of light, as though the night sky itself had woven strands into it. Her eyes, when they lifted toward Ezra, reflected the stars above, calm, endless, steady. Ezra paused just a few steps away. His voice was low, hushed, as though speaking in a dream. "You." The woman tilted her head slightly, and though her lips curved into the gentlest smile, she did not speak right away. She simply looked at him as if she already knew the sound of his heart. The meadow around them swayed in slow rhythm, the grasses brushing together like whispers. Fireflies floated nearer, their lights weaving between them like threads of quiet magic. At last, she spoke. Her voice was soft, warm, carrying the stillness of the night. "You called to me." Ezra let out a quiet breath. His chest felt light, as though her words had unlocked something he had held for too long. "I only whispered," he said. "I didn't know if anyone would hear." Her smile deepened, tender but unhurried. "Stars listen," she murmured, "especially the ones waiting to fall." Silence rested between them, but it was not empty. It was full of wonder, of recognition, of something Ezra could not name but had always felt. He lowered himself to sit a short distance from her, careful not to disturb the soft glow of stardust that lingered around her. The blanket he carried slipped from his arm, spreading lightly over the grass. For a while they simply sat together. No rush, no questions pressing upon the air. Only the steady presence of two beings who had somehow found each other in the wide hush of night. Ezra turned his gaze upward to the stars above. "I've been watching for you," he whispered. Her eyes followed his to the sky. "And I have been falling toward you," she replied. The grasses swayed once more, like a lullaby played upon the earth. Ezra closed his eyes briefly, letting the calm of her nearness wash over him. He did not need to understand everything in this moment. It was enough to sit here in the meadow with the quiet company of the star that had waited to be caught. And beside him, the star, now human, now warm, now here simply rested, her glow steady, her silence kind. The meadow seemed to hold them in its embrace, the tall grasses leaning inward as though listening to their silence. Above, the sky glimmered gently, but Ezra hardly looked up any more. His gaze kept drifting toward her, the quiet figure who shimmered faintly, as if her skin remembered the glow of the heavens. The longer he sat beside her, the more he understood. She was not only someone who had stepped into the meadow, she was the star, the one he had followed with his eyes night after night, the one who had fallen slowly, not out of accident, but out of choice. Ezra turned his head, studying her profile in the faint glow. Her hair carried soft flecks of silver that caught the breeze and shimmered like scattered constellations. Her hands rested loosely upon her lap, delicate, serene, yet grounded, as though she belonged both to the earth and the sky. When she finally met his gaze, her eyes were calm, clear, and full of quiet knowing. "You've always been watching," she said softly. "Always waiting." Ezra's lips parted, but no words came at first. He simply nodded, the smallest smile touching his mouth. "I thought I was only dreaming," he murmured. "But it was you." She tilted her head, a gentle motion, her hair swaying like strands of light. "It was me," she whispered. "I heard you. Even when your voice was only a breath, even when you thought no one could hear. I heard." The night deepened around them. A hush settled over the meadow, as if the earth itself wanted to give them space. The fireflies circled slower, there, lights blinking in soft rhythm, like a heartbeat in the air. Ezra drew in a long, steady breath. "Why?" he asked, though his voice carried no demand, only quiet wonder. Her answer came not in haste, but in stillness, carried by the tone of someone who had all the time in the world. "Because your heart was gentle," she said. "It called to me, not with loudness, not with longing for more, only with presence, only with kindness." Her words rested upon him like a blanket, warm and light. For a long moment, Ezra simply let himself feel the truth of it. He had spent so many nights looking upward, waiting for the star. And now here she was beside him, her voice softer than the night breeze, her presence both fragile and steady. He reached for the blanket that lay between them and, without speaking, lifted one side, letting it fall lightly across her shoulders. The gesture was small, quiet, but full. She looked at him with that same calm gaze, and for the first time her glow softened, not fading, but deepening, like light becoming warmth. They did not need to say more. Ezra understood. The star had not fallen by chance. She had fallen to him, and in the hush of the meadow, under the slow drift of stars, Ezra felt the realization settle gently into his soul. He was no longer watching alone. The meadow rested in stillness, as though the world itself had exhaled. Into quiet, Ezra and the fallen star sat side by side, the blanket draped lightly across both their shoulders, their silence unbroken yet full of meaning. Above them, the stars gleamed gently, but it was not the wide sky Ezra's eyes returned to now. It was the nearness beside him, the steady glow that no longer belonged only to the heavens, but to the earth, to this moment, to him. The grasses swayed softly in the night breeze, brushing together like hushed voices sharing secrets. Crickets sang in their steady rhythm, low and lulling. Fireflies drifted lazily in circles, their glow rising and fading like lanterns rocking on a gentle tide. Neither of them felt the need to speak. Ezra leaned back onto his hands, tilting his head toward the sky. She mirrored him slowly, as though her movements had always been guided by his. Their shoulders touched beneath the blanket, light as a sigh, and even that simple contact carried the quiet weight of something whole. The glow around her was gentler. Now, no longer radiant, but softened, as if the earth itself was teaching her how to rest. Ezra noticed how her breath matched the rhythm of the night, how her presence no longer seemed distant or otherworldly. She was here with him, and that was enough. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the cool air brush against his cheeks. Letting the faint warmth of her presence soak into his skin, he thought of all the nights he had waited, lying on his rooftop with only the stars for company. The longing, the patience, the whispers into the dark. And now all of that longing had found its quiet answer. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. "Do you hear it?" Ezra opened his eyes slowly, turning to her. "Here." "What?" "The silence," she said. Her eyes glowed faintly as they met his. "It has been waiting too." He let out a soft breath of laughter, not sharp, not loud, but warm. "Then let's listen," he murmured. So they listened. To the grasses moving, to the fireflies drifting, to the earth sighing beneath them, to the silence that was no longer empty, but shared. Ezra felt her hand rest loosely upon the blanket. Between them, fingers brushing fabric. Without words, he laid his own hand near by, not touching at first, only close, only present. The space between their hands was quiet, patient, and in that small nearness was a peace deeper than any spoken promise. The meadow held them gently, the night carried them softly, and the stars above seemed to slow their shimmer, as though the universe itself wished to rest. And in that rest, Ezra felt whole. The night deepened into its gentlest hours. The air grew cooler, the meadow's tall grasses bowing more heavily beneath the weight of dew. The world had quieted, as if even time itself had chosen to rest. Ezra and the fallen star remained seated side by side, their blanket a small island of warmth in the wide meadow. The glow that once surrounded her had softened into something tender, like the faint shimmer of moonlight on still water. Her eyes, steady and calm, lifted once more to the sky. The constellations stretched above them, ageless and patient. Yet, tonight they seemed to flicker slower, their light swaying gently, as if the heavens themselves were easing into slumber. Ezra followed her gaze. "Do you miss it?" he asked softly, his words a mere breath. She turned to him, her expression serene. "I do not miss what I still hold within me," she whispered. "The stars remain here." She touched her chest lightly, her hand resting over her heart. Then, with the faintest of smiles, she added, "And now here." Her gaze lingered on him. Ezra felt his breath settle into a rhythm that matched hers, slow, unhurried, steady. The world around them seemed too quiet, further still, until even the crickets sang more softly, their rhythm becoming a lullaby. Her head tilted gently, resting at last upon his shoulder. The blanket trapped them closer, her warmth blending with his. Ezra did not move, did not speak, but simply let the moment cradle them both. The glow within her dimmed little by little, not fading with loss, but softening into rest. Like a lantern gently extinguished when morning is near, she allowed herself to close her eyes. Ezra closed his as well. For the first time in many nights, he did not search for the sky, did not wait for something distant, the star he had longed. For rested quietly beside him, and that was enough. The meadow breathed around them, its whispers folding into the hush of sleep. The stars above seemed to drift slower, their light easing into stillness. Ezra's thoughts grew lighter, softer, dissolving into peace, and in that silence, in that shared warmth, there was no longer waiting, no longer longing, only presence, only love, quiet and whole, resting beneath the night sky. And so, dear listener, let your breath slow, let your body rest. Like Ezra and the fallen star, allow yourself to drift into calm, into stillness, into dreams. The stars will keep their watch, the night will hold you gently, and peace will settle softly, like starlight upon your soul. Good night.